Hi everybody, welcome to episode 107 of the HooperCast. It's me, Connor, saying hello, and I've got on the phone, on the blower, Mr. Johnny Hayden. Hello, John.
Hello.
How are you?
I am well. Yourself?
Good. Thank you for joining me on this this Friday evening. I guess I don't know why I get so weird about revealing what day we record, but because it's not a big secret. I mean, we usually do this on Wednesdays, and then Dustin and I could not schedule this week, so you and I are doing this little. This podcast will be a little bit fresher out of the oven, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree.
Dustin later in this episode is going to have a review of the film Embers. But in the meantime, John, I just wanted to talk to you, like, above all, but, yeah, but I
make you feel so special.
Yeah, well, you also have information I need,
Okay.
yes, but we'll talk about that in a second, about what you saw. I want to talk real quick about a movie I saw, because yours will have more discussion than mine. Yeah. I saw a film called Ex Machina a couple days ago. Have you seen this movie?
I have not.
Okay, well, I put the computer in a different place this time, and so I don't have the other computer that has the information on it right in front of me, so let me make sure I got the year right. Okay, well, it was from this year, but anyway, it's directed and written by a man named Alex Garland. He was the one who wrote 28 Days Later. I think Days? Shit. Damn it. Okay, he wrote 28 Days Later and 28 Weeks. No, the executive producer on 28 Weeks Later. Yeah. Anyway, so this is his directorial debut. And it's a film starring Domhnall Gleeson, who we're all aware of, the Harry Potter fans out there, Bill Weasley. Also stars Oscar Isaacs, who I've heard that name a lot, but I think this is the first time I've seen a movie with him in it. Do you know his work at all?
I do. He was in a really great Coen Brothers movie their last film, I think, Inside Llewyn Davis. He was the main character in that.
Okay, that's right. Right.
He's also in the new Star Wars.
Yes, he is. He's everywhere.
He is. He's blown up.
Yeah. It also stars someone named Alicia Vikander and a Sonoya Mizuno. I'm getting these names kind of all weird, but anyway. So the film is about. So Domhnall Gleeson is this coder named Caleb, and he basically gets selected to go out to basically meet he's the head of the whole research tech firm company he works for, and spend a week just kind of like learning from him and hanging out with him. And so it's sort of revealed, the guy who's Oscar Isaac, a little eccentric, but not like goofy, just like for a guy who's very brilliant with like, basically a Tony Starkish kind of dude with like, but working much more with just, not so much with tech as it is with like robots specifically. He's real normal. Like he likes to lift weights. He likes to drink a lot, and he calls you dude. Just not what you would expect. Like the CEO, founder of this company to be like, but completely normal, relatable guy. And he basically reveals to him, like, look, you're not out here because you won some contest. Like, you're here because I want you to administer the Turing test. Now, do you know what the Turing test is, John?
I do not.
The Turing test, named after Alan Turing, the imitation game, it's how you test if a machine has artificial intelligence, or whether it can successfully mimic human behavior. The idea being, the actual Turing test is you would have an AI and a human basically conversing with you or with one another over, like some sort of instant messenger, basically. And if you couldn't tell which was human and which was machine, then the machine will have passed the Turing test. It's to gauge, basically, if it has human, indistinguishable human qualities, basically. So he's got this robot that he's built that he calls Ava, which has a human looking face. It's a mask, but it's mostly you can see like the exoskeleton of her, but she's got human looking hands and human looking face. So that the person administering the test and the viewer of the film can relate to her. So throughout the movie, you get this increasing sense of like, I wouldn't say danger, but tension. Like, what am I really doing here? What are his plans for her? Or like, what's the end game with her? And then, of course, the whole idea of like, does she have artificial intelligence, or has she been programmed by him for a specific purpose for Domhnall Gleeson that he doesn't know about yet, or what's going on? I don't want to reveal too much but basically you're left at a certain point thinking, who's evil? Is Oscar Isaac evil? Is the robot evil? And what I like about this movie, I'd heard it was good, and I haven't watched a lot of movies lately that were artistic. Really, I mean, I watched a lot of blockbusters lately, so I just like, okay, so I watched this movie, and what I was impressed with was how just visually it's real nice. Like the cinematography is real nice, the pace is real good. I mean, it's just a whole lot of talking, but it's interesting, and the concept is interesting to me. And I guess just the idea of this coder, not really falling in love with the robot. They really did avoid that cliche, but clearly relating to her and probably unable to really stop himself at a certain point from just thinking of her as human, even though he doesn't. But with the way they talk, you can tell like he's sort of like he's taken with her. And for the guy who owns, his boss to have questionable motives for bringing him there in the first place, it's real interesting. So yeah, on a pretty small scale, but asking those greater questions of like, could you create something with so much artificial intelligence that it starts to question its purpose for being? And it reminded me a little bit of Bicentennial Man, which I keep going back to ever since we reviewed it on the show, but it reminded me of Bicentennial Man because that's the same thing that Andrew, Robin Williams' character, goes through in that eventually. Like as he increases his capacity for learning and understanding philosophies and other things, he can't help but apply it to his own existence. But he's subhuman, so what does that mean? So she kind of has the same sort of like, if I ever, got out in the world, I would go do this because this and this and this, and just it's interesting. I'm probably saying too much, but what I'm saying is Ex Machina is a good film. I watched it on Amazon Prime Instant Video, and I downloaded it to my device because you can do that with Amazon, and it's great. So I was able to take it with me, watch it offline, and it was good. Even on my phone. I mean, I watched it on my phone, and it's not really meant for that. This movie was shot in 4K, which is an interesting little tidbit. So, and a lot of it takes place, like, obviously inside this research facility type house the guy has out in the woods. But there's a lot of outdoor cinematography as well because it's in the middle of nowhere, and so just all the textures of the outside elements are really, really nice, and probably way better on a Blu-ray on a nice TV than it is on an iPhone. The budget, by the way, for this movie was $15 million, and it's getting praised for its I don't know if it's getting really I mean, they don't lean too heavily on special effects. I mean, they have her, clearly the actress, and then you have to do that thing where you sort of, you would think she's in like a motion capture suit, and then they track out, her torso so they can sort of see through it because it's mesh and blah, blah, blah. But what I learned researching this movie is they shot it like a regular live action film. She did not wear she didn't wear a suit or have any tracking marks or no green screens or anything. They shot her just on set like they're talking to him. And then they just did the whole clean plate thing, the clean pass without her in it so that they could use that as background elements. But they didn't do it traditionally. You would think that they'd have like motion capture-ish or green screen technology, but somehow they did it without it. And by shooting a background plate. So I'm wondering what the reason is behind that, because you would think that would make post-production easier. But for some reason it was a budget thing, and they just said, we're going to shoot it clean and we're going to shoot it with her just, in like, I guess in like some, I don't know if it was like spandex or just something tight, but I'm not sure. I just thought that was an interesting thing, because I was like, oh, well, I mean, I can't tell. And believe me, I look at those things. I was looking at the seams. I was like, where is it? And I didn't see it. So they did a good job. I just wonder, like, why. I guess I'm not sure. Listeners, if you know why that would be advantageous to a filmmaker, please let me know, because I don't quite understand that that decision, but it looked good. So it's a very solid, science fiction, and one of the more artfully done and not stupid science fiction films of late. And small budget movies are really good at doing that. It reminded me in a way, not as much. I still like this next film I'm about to mention better. But John, I remember when you recommended that I see the film Moon by Duncan Jones.
Yeah.
With Sam Rockwell. And, I like Moon better than I like this movie. Just Moon's got so much more interesting stuff going on. But, Moon, I think, also had twice the budget of this film, if I recall, I think. But Moon's another film that's like had a surprisingly small budget for everything it was showing you. It was much more effects heavy, but it was able, and it was done so far off the books that the ideas remained untainted by kind of this, by a studio who don't get me wrong, I like studios, and I don't think they're evil, but what they tend to do is they want to broaden the scope of their audience. And with movies like this, you could lose the message that the filmmaker wants. And so I want movies like this to be made like this, because they tend to be done with more care. They tend to be done with smarter decision making, and that obviously will make more profit that way as well. And that keeps the integrity of the piece. So, yeah.
You were speaking of the actress being upset. In Moon, I believe that the character that Sam Rockwell, the only character really that he interacts with throughout the movie other than himself, is Gertie, the robot. And that was all CG.
Real quick, I'm mistaken. Moon's budget was $5 million. It was actually 1/3 the budget of this movie. It was not twice the budget. I was off by $25 million. So, yeah. Now, it didn't make as much money as this movie did, but sure cost less. Yeah. Anyway, watch Ex Machina. I recommend it.
All right. Well, we'll have to check it out. That sounds interesting.
Speaking of blockbusters, John, you saw a pretty large one recently.
I did. I saw the final. I guess not final anymore, perhaps, but the Hunger Games Mach-ing Jay Part 2 recently.
Yeah. Well, that movie is obviously still in theaters right now. It's currently sitting, I believe, at like a 71 or 74 on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
So
that sounds about right.
So certified fresh, pretty good box office take. I think they've made about $580 million at this point, at the time of this recording. Yeah.
I think it holds the record for, it's the only film franchise to have 4 films that have opened at over $100 million opening weekend.
Really?
Yes.
That's interesting. Well, did you like it?
Yeah. I did. I loved it. I loved the other 3, particularly the last 2. The first one I still like, but I didn't think it was on par with the last 2. But yeah, I thought it was great. I don't know where to go from here.
What would do you have? I mean, So yeah, you've explained like which ones you like as well. So I mean,
okay.
I've only seen the first two.
Okay.
And I really did not like the first one, and I had read the book. And so I read the books and I watched the second one, which was done by the same guy who did, the rest of the films, Francis Lawrence. And
he also did I Am Legend.
Yeah, well, and like any director, like eventually they find the guy who they want to do all of them. Kind of like when Harry Potter found David Yates, they're like, okay, we want this man to do the remaining films. And Catching Fire was very good.
Yes, Catching Fire was excellent.
Yeah.
For me, I thought the first film was good. I thought it was very interesting, but it was kind of one of those movies where I saw it and I said, oh, that was good, and then I didn't really think about it again. And then when I went to go see Catching Fire, it was one of those movies where you go in and I didn't know anything about how it was going to end or anything, and the entire time it just kept me guessing as to where the story was going, and I couldn't guess it. And a lot of times when you go into these big movies, they're really predictable. The good guy wins and the end the bad guy's defeated. Blah blah blah. But this movie, that movie ended in such a way that left me wanting more, which is another rare thing to get out of a movie this size. And so after that film came out, I went and read the 3 books, and then I guess it was last year, Mach-ing Jay Part 1 came out, and that film was very different in tone from the first two because the 2 Mach-ing Jay films don't feature a Hunger Games arena type setting. So I think some people were turned off by that. In particular, the first Mach-ing Jay, but this one as well, have a very strong political and social theme running throughout, and they're much more mature, I think, than the first two. And so I think a lot of people, kind of went into these movies expecting, kids killing kids. This is going to be tense and fun and whatever, and it wasn't that at all. It was kind of a serious, look at war and how war affects people and how people are manipulated into believing things by the media and war propaganda and things like that. So I think these 2 Mach-ing Jay films are interesting in that they're blockbuster movies, but at the same time they don't fit the mold of a typical blockbuster in a way, and it was refreshing. And I liked Mach-ing Jay Part 1. It was kind of like Deathly Hallows Part 1. It was certainly slower than the other installments, but it was kind of building up to that penultimate moment, so you needed that film first. But I guess Mach-ing Jay Part 2 basically picks up where the other film left off. The capital is crumbling. All the districts around them are revolting, basically, and so Katniss leads a team into the capital to overtake the president, played by Donald Sutherland. And I guess this is going to get spoilery. I don't know if we need to say that, but
yeah,
I won't go into too much detail, but
yeah.
But basically, the film centers around Katniss and her team trying to maneuver through the city, and the president has set up a bunch of traps for all of the districts, the army of the districts, to kill them on their way to his mansion, basically. And on Katniss is being manipulated by the head of the districts, played by Julianne Moore, who is gunning to be the new president. And so she sends Peeta to join Katniss's team. Peeta, in the last film, at the end of Catching Fire, Peeta was captured and basically brainwashed into believing that Katniss was evil.
Yeah.
And so he wants to kill her. And so there's a lot of back and forth between that, between those 2 characters. But, having read the book, I went into this movie knowing how it was going to end, and just like the other films, I thought that this was really faithful to the book and the book's message. And there's certain things that have to be kind of switched around or moved for time and pacing, and because the film is much different than a book. But for the
Yeah.
And his death is a little bit different. I think they had to change up to get a PG-13 rating. In the book, it's much more of like a gruesome thing.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So it's a little. He gets a little bit. It's not quite as gruesome in the movie, but certain things like that were changed. But overall, it was very faithful to the book and source material, and you have some great performances. Jennifer Lawrence is great, and Josh Hutcherson was really good this movie, kind of playing Keita as he struggles with kind of getting a grasp on what's real in his life and what's fake, and he's kind of dealing with finding who he is again and grappling with this PTSD that he has from all these experiences in the Hunger Games and being tortured by the Capitol and things like that. And Julianne Moore is like I said, the kind of new president. She's great, and this was, I guess, the final film for Philip Seymour Hoffman. Who's not in the movie very much, presumably because he died during production. But you get to see enough of him to where he makes an impression on you, and so yeah. All in all, it was a great film, and like I said, I really like these movies because I feel like they're speaking directly to me in a social context, and it's kind of holding a mirror up to what the world is going through right now. And I think that's why I gravitated toward these movies, because I like films that have something to say and something that is relevant and aside from the fact that they're well directed and like you said, Francis Lawrence did the last three, which are like we said, the best of the three. So they're well directed, they're well shot, well written, well acted. I loved it from top to bottom. So
yeah,
no complaints.
It's interesting because, like you said, it has like a social context, and of course, the message of a lot of very important and relevant themes that resonate through these stories, which is the whether it's some form of basically PTSD or kids that as a byproduct of society have to grow up too fast, in a way, and war and poverty, and not to mention a tyrannical government, and the use of the media to manipulate the masses is obviously like probably the biggest theme, which is obviously something that and that even played a role in Harry Potter to a degree with the Daily Prophet, just the use of mass communications to discredit the heroes, basically, and which is always a great theme. Now,
and for me too, one of the things in these movies is that they always have the Stanley Tucci character, who is kind of this TV host, this master of ceremonies type character, and he is the kind of the embodiment of the hollowness of the Capitol and the people.
Yeah.
And the people that are entertained by poor children killing each other, and there's a character in this film that is has had so much plastic surgery done to herself to make herself look, because everyone in the Capitol looks strange, and it's a normal thing to get plastic surgery and wear these outrageous clothes, and then there's a character that they run into who's had so much done to her that she's been shunned by the society, and it's almost like surreal in a way to do this, because there are aspects of that that can be found in real life too. So even things like that, it's interesting in that way too. But,
yeah. Now, the only thing I haven't seen part one, although part one is on Amazon, so I could do like I did with Ex Machina and download it to my device and watch it.
sure.
And the reason I haven't yet is mostly because I know how the story ends, so I'm not seeking the closure as I would if I hadn't read the books. And I am a little bit put out with movies that are split into two parts these days. And I know I'm not alone, because a lot of people have said they were a little disappointed this was put into two parts. Now, we clearly know why. I mean, it started, and again, I will say this till my dying day. Well, probably not. I hope this isn't what I'm talking about. On my deathbed, like, where am I? Connor, your kids are here. Hold on a second. I need to say this. The Harry Potter, I didn't think it was badly done, but I'll say that I would have preferred the Deathly Hallows as 1 4-hour movie instead of 2.5-hour movies. I didn't like waiting, 9 months between the films that were written as one book. While I was like, okay, that was like the first time it had been done. It was like, okay, this is interesting, but I get it. This is going to be the 7th and 8th films in a run of movies. I get it if they're trying to really cap off the franchise, but then everybody started doing it. Twilight did it, where that book is, it shouldn't be split into 2. I just don't think now I'm going to protect myself from future hypocrisy. Hooper, what about Infinity War Parts 1 and 2? Those are written as 2 separate screenplays. They are not derived from source material. That's one part, and presumably they're not going to take place like back to back. Like I don't think you're going to come into part 2 at the exact moment it left off, because they're going to be released about at least a year apart.
Yeah,
I think an entire year apart.
There's going to be films between them as well.
Exactly. So they can't exist back to back. So that automatically is disqualified from this discussion, and it is above scrutiny. So, but Twilight, Harry Potter, then Twilight, and then who else did it? The Hobbit. Where The Hobbit has enough material for it, but I mean, I don't like things that are written as one thing and then are split into 2 parts, because it just stinks of a blatant cash grab to me.
For me, I can't speak to Twilight because I didn't even see the last 2. I don't think, and I didn't read the books. But for me, with Harry Potter, I don't see any way that could have worked as one movie, because even if you cut both movies in half right now, it would feel rushed. You wouldn't get those beats and those moments that you need. Even cutting out half the first movie, I don't see how you could have that work.
Well, here's what I mean. I guess I you're right. But I guess to me, it's a lose-lose, because you either have to be true to the story structure from the book or the 3-act structure of a movie. And if you're making, you have to you almost have to manufacture in the part 1, because since the movie does not conclude with the conclusion of the story, you either have to cliffhang it, which doesn't always happen naturally, and it doesn't feel satisfying. But also not anticipatory in a good way. It feels like a cheat. Or you have to manufacture a 3rd act that didn't exist in the books, thereby you're screwing up the dynamic of the story at large. So I think it's just, I hate being the one saying blatant cash grab, but I just feel like when you do that, you put yourself in a real thin, delicate situation that most people can't navigate well.
Yeah. I mean, for me, if the book is so long that if you would have to cut out so many moments, I understand splitting it into 2 parts, like with Hunger Games. I don't see any way that, especially after seeing both films, that it could have been put into one, 2.5-hour film or whatever. I think you would have just lost so many character moments. You would have lost so many emotional beats, and just the story you would have, and especially with a film that's trying to get a message across to you, like this one, that message would be the first thing to go, and it would. And same with Harry Potter. I think if they were to be condensed into just one film, then the studio would rather probably keep the action beats, like in Deathly Hallows 2 and then Mach-ing Jay Part 2, as opposed to kind of the character moments in the first installments of both of those. So
no, that's true.
Yeah.
Well,
so like for me, I think my 2 favorite films, Harry Potter films, are Half-Blood Prince and Deathly Hallows 1.
Yeah.
And Deathly Hallows 1 has my favorite moment in the entire series, and it's where Harry and Hermione dance in the tent. And that scene would have been cut. If it were to be skinned down into one film, that scene would have been among the first to go, just because it doesn't necessarily add anything to the story. And, but little moments like that are what make the films for me. So agree. It can be abused. You know, like I said, I can't speak to Twilight, but I've read The Hobbit, and you know, that probably didn't need to be split into 3 films. Maybe 2, but
yeah.
You know, 3 was 10%, but you know, I don't know.
Man, you know what my favorite part in Deathly Hallows 1 was? And I don't know if it's my favorite part in the series. I got a lot. We could do a whole podcast about my favorite Harry Potter moments, but while we're on the subject, my favorite part of that one was when Ron destroys the locket.
Yeah, that was great too.
Because it's an entire scene of a big scary voice basically telling him that he's worthless and he's nothing, right, and he'll never measure up to Harry, and you know his parents don't love him, you know, Hermione doesn't love him, like he's worthless, and basically, like, you know, I see those as very spiritually allegorical movies. So that to me is like, you know, a parallel of, like, you know, the Prince of Darkness, you know, like it's like this whole thing of, like, you know, but you know, just any dark malevolent force that would tell you that you are nothing and you should quit, like you should give up. It's just like, and basically, and I love just Harry in the background yelling, "Ron, it's lying, Ron, kill it," you know, and that's just a cool moment.
And especially Ron, who was always the most
insecure, yeah, vulnerable, yeah.
And always had to live in Harry's shadow, and
yeah,
Hermione's shadow as well, you know. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's move on. Because my brain's trying to go on a tangent. And that's not what this is supposed to be. Let's talk about the future of this franchise. It was announced recently, if I'm not mistaken, that there are going to be, or they have left the door open to be prequels to this franchise. And you told me that the quote from the one person was what?
I think it was someone. It was a Lionsgate executive or something, and he said that they'd be open to doing more Hunger Games films, but I believe he said that it kind of felt like a PR line, but he said we don't want to. Ironically, we don't want to distort the message of the book, which this seems to contradict making more films. And he said he brought that up, but he also compared it to Harry Potter, saying that they would like to kind of extend the shelf life of the brand by kind of delving into these moments that were referenced in the books and the movies, but never really shown, never really portrayed on screen.
And I have a problem with that, not only in everything you just said, you know, because one, it's popular and that's good, but that doesn't necessarily mean you should keep going. It's like, hey, you should cash out, quit while you're ahead, and then, you know, let the other people who are going to make other films do their thing, but like let them be the ones who people pity in hindsight, like, oh God, look at those poor bastards scrambling for a piece of the pie. Don't let that person be you. Like, God, they're making Hunger Games 9. Man, that really burnt out. You know, and
you don't want to cheapen the
you're cheapening. You're not only cheapening the brand, but you're cheapening the genre. If you dominate the genre without, now Harry Potter, of course, is different. There is source material for that.
Right.
But my problem, and I'm about to contradict myself halfway. The whole prequel thing in the vein of Harry Potter. I'm not on board with this Harry Potter prequel at all. And I know that that's not really a popular opinion. But I'm not interested at all in Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. Mostly because I guess what I like so much about, I don't know, for me, I feel like there's this like, you know, extra dimensional space between things that were written before the thing became a phenomenon and things that were written after it became a phenomenon. So there were the books, and then obviously they were popular midway through her writing them. But, you know, but she kept the integrity of the stories all the way through the books being written, or, you know, and but now that, like, the series overall has been received very well, and then I feel like then she wrote Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, and, you know, and I feel like it was one of those things that was written as the book while simultaneously being developed as a film. And I'm kind of like, I hate that. I really hate that, because to me it just goes, maybe those first films were so successful because they weren't made to be adapted for the screen, and like, she wasn't thinking of that when she wrote them. When she thought of this story, she was just this poor writer who was thinking of a good story, and that's all. And all that drove her was the pure creativity of it. And now I feel like what's part of what's driving her is, as little as she would want to admit it, I feel like there's a little part of it that has to be influenced by the fact that this will be well received, instead of all the self-doubt and the whatever she was thinking when she first wrote the stories. Now, it could end up being amazing. I could eat my words, but to me, I've watched 8 movies with this world and these characters, and while the characters are not going to be in there, I don't know if I'm interested in revisiting the world. The same reason I'm not interested in revisiting Toy Story, because it ended perfectly. I have complete closure and I can move on, and they can be good the way I remember them being, and I don't have to reinvest in something uncertain. And I don't want to say it like that, because you should, kind of dive in vulnerably to these movies, but I don't want to invest in a bunch of characters that I have no, I don't know. I don't know who any of the characters are. Is Eddie Redmayne playing Harry Potter?
No, he's playing the character that wrote the book in the universe, The Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them.
Okay, see, I don't care about him. Like, I don't care about him. I don't care about anything that he's really doing. And honestly, like, what could be more interesting, in my opinion, than the battle against Voldemort that took place over the original books? I just feel like nothing else could measure up to that. And maybe they'll surpass it. But to me, it's just like with The Hobbit, right? So the whole thing is against Smaug and Azog. But it's like, I've seen a series where they defeated Sauron, like, the big bad of Middle Earth. You're going to tell me that a dragon and one big orc is basically as threatening as that? I just didn't feel any sense of danger, really, Sure. After you've been through Voldemort, who was perfectly written and perfectly performed and personified on the page and on screen, and you have this boy defeat him, I'm just like, what's better than that David Goliath story, to me? And so, for them to say, when they say we want it to be kind of like Harry Potter, it's just like, oh, but okay.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm excited for Fantastic Beasts because Joe Rowling is doing it and she's writing it, and knowing her and her integrity around this brand, she wouldn't be bullied into doing it, and she's not doing it for money, certainly. She's doing it because she wants to write it, and I think as long as she's on board with it, then I'm on board with it. And this is the first Harry Potter film that's going to take place in the United States.
Yeah,
it's going to revolve around. I think it's New York. I don't know. I only know from what I've read, but it sounds like it's going to be kind of similar, but it's going to be a fresh take on the whole Harry Potter world. So it's going to introduce new aspects of that, from what I've read. But so I'm interested in it because I just feel like as long as she has a vision for what she's trying to accomplish, then I'm on board. And I know that she's had backstories for all these characters. If you asked her what, Professor McGonagall did when she was 13, what was her, she could tell you. And so she's had these backgrounds of this world and all this stuff mapped out in her head for a long time, I think. And so it's just kind of putting it to paper and then eventually to a screen. And the Fantastic Beasts book was literally just like a textbook. Because I've read it before, and it's kind of just an informational book about the different creatures. So this is like, as far as I know, like an entirely new story. So that's interesting, and it seems like it'll have very little to do with the actual Harry Potter mythos and things like that. It's kind of separate from that, but it takes place in the same world, kind of. But with the Hunger Games, it's a bit different because. They haven't announced any concrete plans, but I doubt that, a new film would be written by Suzanne Collins or something, so it's tougher to vet that. I'm still on the fence about how I feel about the Hunger Games being prequelized or what have you, but there are moments that that were alluded to that may be interesting. So something like seeing Haymitch's Hunger Games or Fennec's Hunger Games or Joanna's Hunger Games or something like that maybe could work. But I just don't know. I don't know if the public would have interest in it without Katniss and Peeta and those other characters. I think that you would lose some of that, and I still don't know really how I feel about it. I do think it's kind of a bastardization of what the book stood for. If you extend it simply to make more money, but if done right, it could be interesting. So,
okay.
I don't know. I'm reserving judgment on that one. We'll see. I could be eating my words too once they announce.
All right.
And it's,
so. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to go ahead and throw it over to our next item today, which is Dustin has a review of the film. I think it's either Embers. So here's Dustin with that.
Hello, everybody. Dustin here. So I am coming to you today remotely, and I am going to be talking about the film Embers, which I saw at the Savannah Film Festival. I want to apologize really quick for the state of my voice, which is not very good radio to not take care of your voice, but I'm coming off of a long work week, and I think I'm starting to lose my voice. So it's really good because I can talk really low and, do some Johnny Cash impressions or like Optimus Prime, but not so great for reviewing films, as it turns out. So let's get started. Embers is a film that came out this year, and it's directed by Claire Carre, and it stars a few people who you may or may not have heard of, like Jason Ritter, for instance, Tucker Smallwood, a couple little people here and there that you may or may not know. But the plot of Embers is basically think Memento, where Leonard from Memento is unable to make new memories. It's the same way here, only that's the entire planet is that way. So it's after some huge neurological epidemic or some sort of a post-apocalyptic kind of a deal, and it has affected everybody's brains to the point where every morning that they wake up, they have no memory of the day before. So they've got their long-term memories, most of them, but not or I guess I don't know what you call it, but those memories that are ingrained in you, like walking and riding bikes and what watches are and what different things are. This is a hammer or whatever the case may be, an umbrella. But for instance, the two sort of main leads, I'll call them the mains because they start and I think also end the film, although it's sort of an ensemble piece. They are unable to remember their names. So every morning they wake up, it's a husband and wife, and every morning they wake up and they don't remember each other. So they have to figure out that they're supposed to be together, that they've, for better or for worse, no pun intended, they have decided to stick together, and they've left each other clues so that every morning that they wake up, they realize, hey, we're supposed to be with each other. We're not supposed to fight or, lose track of one another. But the issue is this doesn't just affect the memory for when you go to sleep. If something takes too long, they can forget what it was they were doing. So think Dory from Finding Nemo. For instance, there's a part where these two characters, Jason Ritter, who his character's name is just Guy, because he doesn't even know his own name, and his wife, played by Iva Gocheva, I guess is how you say that, and she just plays girl, and they spend too long looking at different apartments in this old rundown post-apocalyptic apartment building, that they forget which room that they were supposed to be in the first place, which room they were taking all the stuff to that they find in the various rooms. So their memory, and this is the same for everybody, the memory is just gone. So it's very interesting in that, conceptually, if we're just talking about the concept of the film, it's a brilliant concept to do a post-apocalyptic movie where it's not like zombies or, like just weird biological things, but rather neurological. And so yeah, that's an issue. So what I'll say is I really enjoyed the film. I don't think it's super exciting, nor does it really have characters that you get to know because they don't even know themselves. So it's kind of a strange, oddball kind of science fiction movie because it's very quiet, very somber, as any good post-apocalyptic movie is, and it has this weird, eerie vibe to it where you're always kind of confused, but that kind of works to its advantage, much in the way that Memento does, in that it makes you feel as off-kilter as the subjects of the film. So beyond the male and female lead, which again, it is an ensemble piece, but aside from the two of them, there are a couple of other characters who are interesting, and they kind of come in and out of the picture at various times in the film. One is a young man who does not speak during the film, but is sort of just this hooligan who, it seems, has completely lost himself neurologically. There's nothing really left to this man except maybe like primal instinct or whatever. And some really dark things happens to him. We see a young child going through this wasteland and meeting various people, becoming sort of attached to them over the course of the day, and then next day no attachment. And so it's interesting to see the way that these characters behave in a very repetitive way, and in a way that is maybe instinctive every day, particularly Jason Ritter and his wife, in that they seem very much the same person from day to day. They just can't remember who they were yesterday. They don't know that they're the same person, but we as the audience kind of see the similarities and know that I guess the way that we get to know the character is in their repetitiveness, what they repeat on a day-to-day basis, even though they don't know that they are repeating it. It's a really interesting film. If you're looking for something quiet, something somber, and something a little thoughtful, then check it out. If, on the other hand, you are not the type that might enjoy a film that, no judgment, but I know there are people out there that have a hard time sticking with a film that is quiet, or that doesn't have maybe a strong, steady build as you become accustomed to, say, like an action movie's slow, steady build. Then perhaps this isn't for you, but I think that it's an interesting movie in that there's a lot that they tell us, not through dialogue, but through visuals, and there's a lot that you can kind of learn about filmmaking from this film. But here's the catch. It isn't a great film because I don't see myself rewatching it, and that to me is a huge deal. And I know coming up we're going to be doing our best of list again, and for me, a movie has to be rewatchable in order to be a best of. In order to be a great film, you have to leave it with some notion of seeing it again, like whether that's I want to see it again right now, or or I want to see it again, in a few weeks. But nevertheless, you want to see that again, and all the great movies are that way. I mean, one of the reasons why Back to the Future is one of my favorite movies is because I watch it every day. So, having said that, I think that Embers falls short because it's not a great film, or rather, it's not a great film because it's not rewatchable. And though it has some great stuff to it, and though it's interesting, perhaps it's not as exciting as it could have been. And perhaps it doesn't even make as much of the concept as it should have. But nevertheless, it's a great concept, coupled with a pretty strong, sense of self. The movie never tries to be anything that it isn't, and it seems to know very clearly what it is. So, for all of these reasons, it's a good film, but it falls just short of being a great film. And, if you happen to come across this movie, and it's $1 on Redbox, and you have an evening to kill, and you do want something slow and quiet, check it out. If, on the other hand, that's not really your thing, then that's not your thing, and that's okay. So, that's Embers, and I think there's only a couple films left on my Savannah Film Festival review list, one or two, and we'll get around to those eventually. They're not out yet, and they will be soon. So, I'm going to toss it back to you, Hooper and John. And I guess that will conclude my review for Embers. So I will see you guys next week. Bye-bye.
All right. Well, thanks, Dustin. It's so weird saying that without knowing what he said.
He just said, "Hey, you all."
Yeah. Hey, you. Thanks, Dustin. That was very nice of you. Real quick, in theaters right now, there's The Big Short. I have no idea what that's about, but I've been hearing it a lot in around my surroundings.
About the bank bailout.
Oh, okay. I don't care about that.
It does look interesting, though. I think it looks. It has a good cap.
Yeah, it does. You're right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, go see that then. Damn it.
That's what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Go see this.
There's Legend, which we have reviewed on the show already, which we decided was, Dustin said it was good if you wanted to watch Tom Hardy basically show you how good of an actor he is, doing a dual role, but the movie itself at large, maybe the structure is not quite there, but that's really up to you. So it's in theaters now, but it's up to you whether you want to pay full price for that. Also, In the Heart of the Sea, which is this Ron Howard movie starring Chris Hemsworth, about essentially the story that inspired Moby Dick. So yeah, big CG whale. Yeah. Anyway, okay. Well, that's gonna do it for this. What?
I have one more thing.
What?
This is just a little pet peeve of mine, but I feel the need to throw it out there.
Okay.
Recently, we've seen a lot of these big blockbuster films that have come out, and for whatever reason, the studio or whoever had really lofty expectations for these films, and they I wouldn't say they underperform, but they come out and they don't make quite as much as some people expected them to, and suddenly they're labeled as a bomb or flop or disappointment or what have you, and this has happened with several big films, notably Age of Ultron earlier this year, which was by no means a disappointment or a flop when you make $1.5 billion.
Yeah.
But like I just said, with the Hunger Games, that film broke a record. But it was this Mach-ing Jay Part 2 was the lowest grossing in terms of opening weekends, at least, of the film series thus far.
Right.
And so that was another film that was lumped in as this is a disappointment. But that sort of bothers me that a film that opens over $100 million can be considered a disappointment.
Yeah, it's kind of messed up.
I don't like that. I don't know that Hollywood has become that way. That you set the bar so high that something like that is just a disappointing growth.
Yeah.
Especially now that they're considering extending the franchise. Obviously, they didn't think it was a disappointment. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I hear you. It's kind of some messed up logic because it's a lot of money.
Yeah, exactly.
Be happy.
I think last year there was only one in 2014. I guess there was only one film that opened to over $100 million. and it was Transformers: Age of Extinction, which just opened. I think it was like $101 million. I mean, it was just over $100 million.
Oh.
So I think anytime you hit a film that has over $100 million, I think you're good.
Word.
So something like Age of Ultron that has, opened with almost $200 million, I think you're okay.
You've won.
Yeah, exactly.
No, you're right. That does need to be pointed out, that it's kind of the bar is very high, and it really doesn't have to be.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of the podcast. So, got some cool stuff coming up for you guys, but I'm not going to talk about it right now. So, man. But what you can look forward to is we're going to be doing our annual best of 2015 in movies. That's probably going to be actually at the end of January, because we'd actually like to see a lot of the ones that are coming out this month, so we can include or not include them fairly. So
there's a new Star Trek coming out in the next couple of weeks. I'm excited for it.
Oh yeah, it's going to be good. There with the warping and the light swords and the woolies.
Yeah, the Willies. Yeah, love them. Captain Spock.
Captain, yeah. Han Spock.
He has a razor rifle. I don't know what it's called.
Yeah, and the multilingual Falcon or something.
Yes. Super Nintendo Chalmers.
All right. So look forward to that maybe at the end of January. We're also going to do our annual look ahead to 2016, which is going to be a two-parter. I think we learned our lesson with that. So, but look forward to that at the right after the new year. And also, we are now on Stitcher. So if you're listening to us, then it doesn't matter because you got us through iTunes probably. But just a fact, maybe you're listening on YouTube, so you can download the Stitcher app and search us on there and get the show that way. Or you can just do the regular iTunes search or Google us. I'm trying to be better about putting the episodes on YouTube after the fact. And we're going to probably take a look at the numbers and streamline that. I don't think we're getting a lot of listenership on Blogger, so we might just close down that department of the podcast. But we'll see. We're going to try and make the show more widely available, not less widely available for the time being. So, yeah, anyway, iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube. But just Google overall. If you have any questions or comments, you can send us a tweet at HooperCast or email us at hoopercast@gmail.com. So until then, John, thank you so much for calling in and helping me fill this episode with some interesting stuff.
Well, thank y'all for having me.
Absolutely. All right. Well, toodaloo, everybody, and spay and neuter your pets.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.